Japan is likely to get an invite to the AUKUS pact, even though Canberra is only lukewarm on the idea. A boom weekend for housing auctions and a record summer season for cruise liners, well and truly topping pre-pandemic levels. Welcome to Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. It is Monday, the 8th of April 2024. I'm Michael Thompson and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, after the show, you have an interview coming up today with Dougal Maple Brown from Maple Brown Abbott.
I do. We decided we wanted to have a look at the big bank stocks and whether or not they've been overbought and maybe it's time to get out of them. Now, obviously, we're not an investing podcast. You should always look for professional advice before making any investment decisions, but you should also listen to Dougal Maple Brown and his view on the big banks and which ones he likes, which ones he doesn't like, whether he thinks they're overvalued, all that sort of stuff. Great interview.
Yeah, it's coming up after the show. Well worth sticking around for. The main story this morning, though, the AUKUS military technology sharing pact between Australia, the UK and the USA is likely to invite Japan to join in the face of growing Chinese assertiveness in the region.
Michael, I think it becomes JAWKUS if they join.
I was going to ask you that. No, I didn't want to be accused of trivialising it if I opened with that. No. What do they call it? Do they call it AUKUS?
No, it sounds like JAWKUS. Mind you, you'd get upset if I was Australia, UK and US and some new party came and they got top billing. Anyway, we are trivialising it somewhat. The three current members are expected to open talks today about expanding the grouping. The so-called Pillar 2 of the alliance will involve collaboration in technologies such as undersea capabilities and hypersonic weapons, according to a report in the Financial Times. It will not involve discussions around nuclear-powered submarines. Now, AUKUS is an outcome of the deal for Australia to buy US submarines using UK technology, in part at a cost of about $368 billion over the next 30 years. Expanding the group is not really a surprise with growing unease in the region. I mean, most recently, Filipino and Chinese ships clashed in the contested South China Sea. Japan was always the most likely next member to be invited. Its Prime Minister, Fumio Kishida, is meeting US President Joe Biden in Washington this week, actually along with the Filipino President, Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Now, Australia is supportive of Japan joining AUKUS, though earlier in the year, Defence Minister Richard Marles said it could take some time to bed down any sort of agreement.
Sean, Australia seems to be punching above its weight in AUKUS, doesn't it? Given the strength of the other nations, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is. The United States, the United Kingdom and Japan are all major powers, but let's remember we're also paying a lot of money for submarines, and that's part of it. So the thing is, Canberra is keen very much to focus on the submarine part of the AUKUS pact and bed down those sort of details before going out and expanding the group to become a broader based group that does a lot more than just the submarines. Obviously, the government is a little concerned about that. The UK is a little bit concerned about that. There's also worries that Japan still lacks the security systems required to protect highly sensitive data. There are those in Washington who are concerned about that one as well. In any case, it does demonstrate Australia's very strategic role in the region and also the fine line the government needs to tread with our largest trading partner, China.
You don't just need to put the J at the start, I've realised. If you actually rearrange the A and the UK and the US and put the US elsewhere and the UK elsewhere, you could also have Jasuka or Ozjuk. Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? How did local markets perform on Friday, Sean?
The S&P ASX 200 closed down a little over 0.5% to 7,773 points, with tech stocks leading the way lower. It seems that most days last week, whether the market was going up or down, the tech stocks led the way. On Friday, the best performing sectors were the utilities and energy stocks for the week, which included only 4 trading days. The market ended down 1.6%. Now, it hit a new peak on Tuesday, before falling basically for the next 3 sessions. On Friday, WiseTech Global, REA and Xero all fell sharply. They had plenty of friends: Cochlear, James Hardie, Aristocrat Leisure, Rio Tinto, Goodman Group, Macquarie Group, BHP. Running out of breath. So many of them fell last Friday. The energy giants sort of bucked the trend. Woodside and Santos, they ended up higher. But anyway, futures trading suggests that the market will actually open higher today.
What about international markets? What's going on?
Well, a stronger than expected jobs market in the United States has reinforced expectations that interest rate cuts will be delayed. A big jump in jobs last month, the highest in 10 months, pushed market expectations for the first cut in the Fed rate out until September. The unemployment rate in the US fell to 3.8%. Now, that helped push Wall Street higher, with the broad-based S&P 500 closing more than 1% higher and the tech-heavy NASDAQ up 1.2%. Remember, we kind of have this rule of thumb that Australia is about 3 to 6 months behind the US. So if interest rates are pushed out to September in the US, if you're going to follow that line of thinking, we're not going to see rate cuts in Australia this year. Very back of the envelope, that though, I hasten to add.
It's kind of in line with what Warren Hogan was telling us last week.
Totally.
The economist with Judo Bank, formerly chief economist at ANZ. And he's had a very good track record of tipping rates, so maybe it's not that far off.
Yeah, he's pushed it out till February next year. He doesn't think the first rate cut will be locally. Anyway, looking at the numbers, Brent crude trading around $91 a barrel. Now, I watched petrol prices around my place go from about $1.85 to more than $2.30 a litre yesterday. I had filled up because I have been watching these oil prices. Clearly, I know someone who hasn't, given your reaction.
You could have sent me a text. You could have done something. I drove past a petrol station yesterday afternoon where fuel was, I think, like $1.82 or something. And I'm like, I'll get it on Tuesday. I'm coming back past. Nope.
Good luck.
All right, thank you.
Good luck. And then anyone out there, if you can get petrol at that $1.80 something, fill her up. That's what I say.
Yeah.
Gold's trading around record levels, around $2,330 an ounce. Bitcoin's back to $69,000 a unit. And the Aussie dollar's up a bit, Michael. Very exciting. Buying just under 66 US cents.
Ooh, settle down.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah, Sean, I've just realised something. I know we got off to a fairly rocky start with trivialising stories. I met a financial planner at a wedding on Saturday night by the name of Shelley, and I actually watched her go to Spotify and click follow on Fear and Greed. And she said...
Well, you were threatening her.
No, I invited her to follow and then watched as she did to make sure that she would. And she said, you will have a new listener come Monday. And so I realised that with horror, that this is the first show that Shelley will be hearing.
Welcome, Shelley.
Welcome, Shelley. And I apologise that this is the first one that you hear. And I promise to be on my best behaviour for the rest of the show, Sean.
Shelley, Michael's normally better than this. I'm not sure.
A slightly higher standard, marginally higher. Anyway, welcome aboard, Shelley.
Welcome,
it's great
Shelley.
to have you here as a listener. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, the housing market is maintaining its strength with the preliminary auction clearance rate over the weekend coming in at more than 75%, with Sydney leading the way.
Yes, the preliminary combined capitals clearance rate recorded a solid bounce this week, rising to 75.9% from 71.1% last week. The final figures for the previous week were revised down to 64.8%. So you kind of see there's about a 6 percentage points difference between the preliminary and the final clearance rates. That 65%, apart from just a short period in early to mid-January, was the lowest of the year, but it has really bounced. Of course, last week was Easter as well. This week's preliminary clearance rate was the highest since early February. It complicates things for the Reserve Bank when deliberating on interest rates, because presumably the central bank doesn't really want a surge in house prices. Melbourne recorded the largest week-on-week increase, rising 7.6 percentage points to 70.6%. Sydney also recorded a solid rise from Easter. Its preliminary clearance rate was 81.6%. In fact, ACT was the only capital to record a rate below 70%, coming in at just under 62%.
Sean, insurance company IAG will make a contrition payment of $650,000 as part of an enforceable undertaking with the Fair Work Ombudsman, following underpayments to thousands of current and former staff.
In February 2020, IAG's proactive review of payroll processes found more than 6,000 current employees and 14,000 former staff had been underpaid one or more entitlements, including certain overtime, allowances and super contributions. IAG repaid some impacted current and former employees in 2022 and 2023. A further payment has been made to the Commonwealth Government for former employees who couldn't be contacted after multiple attempts. Now, the $650,000 contrition payment is a separate payment. The insurer has apologised to impacted employees who missed out mainly because IAG's payroll system back then required them to submit manual entitlement claims, and that's actually the cause of the breach.
$577 billion in COVID-19 government spending meant a faster post-pandemic economic recovery, but health department figures reveal more than 35% of vaccines were being tossed out as of January due to oversupply.
Yes, in its submission to the Albanese government's COVID-19 inquiry, Federal Treasury said Australia's post-pandemic economic recovery was stronger than expected and more rapid than many other advanced economies, according to a report in The Australian. The cost of shielding jobs and ensuring a faster recovery was $343 billion in Commonwealth spending on direct economic and health measures and $234 billion in state and territory spending. JobKeeper, Australia's largest labour market intervention, cost about $130 billion over 6 months to provide fortnightly wage subsidies for 4 million workers. It was extended twice and prevented the loss of up to 800,000 jobs. Now, as a result of this, we ended up with a lot of vaccines. Too many vaccines, hence 35% of them were tossed out in January because they were past their use-by date.
Rio Tinto has signalled the miner will set targets for the preservation of nature and biodiversity to bring international sustainability standards to projects in developing nations.
Yes, the Australian mine has been under pressure, particularly around its minority stake in an Amazonian bauxite to alumina business. Now, Rio had their annual general meeting in London on Thursday night last week. The actual bauxite mine didn't get much of a play, but there was a lot on Guinea's Simandou iron ore project. According to the Financial Review, Simandou will require large-scale development in a region famed for endangered chimpanzees and fragile forest ecosystems. Chair Dominic Barton recently visited Simandou. Now, he told shareholders late last week that civil society groups in Africa were eager to see the project developed to first world standards, but it is increasingly a problem for these large miners that they are running into some of these issues.
How about this story, Sean? This is fantastic. The cruise line season ends at the end of the month, and 2023-24 looks like being the best ever for an industry that was almost entirely destroyed by COVID.
It's amazing, isn't it? Younger Australians, not oldies, are actually driving the rebound as cost of living pressures make cruising look like a more affordable holiday option. About 70 cruise ships have operated in local waters in the past 6 months, an increase from 60 in the season preceding the pandemic, according to The Australian. The three largest operators in the market all expect a record-breaking season once the final numbers are tallied at the end of this month. Carnival Australia has reported that 715,000 guests have already travelled across all 9 of its brands. That's P&O Cruises. Well, it includes P&O Cruises, Carnival, Princess Cruises and Cunard. That's 715,000 guests this summer. Cruising, mind you, has changed a lot. The industry has adapted really well. It's now offering products that keep everyone from young children to grandparents entertained. It's also got various itinerary options, including weekend trips. The variety was boosted by the debut of adults-only Virgin voyages this past summer and also child-friendly Disney Cruise Line.
You'd jump at the chance for an adults-only cruise, wouldn't you?
Michael, unfortunately, you jump at the chance for a child-friendly Disney Cruise Line.
I know. Look, they really are targeting us quite successfully here.
Totally. They know their audience.
Oh, I did a little video on this last night, Sean. Yes. Popped it on the Fear and Greed TikTok and Fear and Greed Instagram. Check us out, Fear and Greed Podcast.
I love your shirt. A very appropriate wear and clothing for this topic.
Yeah, I'm getting some nice feedback on it. I mean, it was very kind of summery, very cruise kind of ish. I'm clinging on to the last of summer via my clothes, Sean. Now, sorry, we're getting way off topic. I said I'd be on my best behaviour so I didn't disappoint Shelley. I'm sorry, Shelley. I've let you down again. Turning to international news, US President Joe Biden has almost $100 million more in his election war chest than Donald Trump 7 months ahead of the election.
Mr. Biden and the Democratic National Committee said over the weekend that they have $192 million on hand, compared with the $93 million Mr. Trump and the Republican National Committee previously said they held at the end of March. It's the most amount of cash on hand of any Democratic candidate in history and included $90 million raised in March alone. compared with $65 million reported by the Trump team last month. Now, the announcement came hours ahead of a Trump fundraiser in Florida for the former president's campaign. They later said, the campaign team, that it raised $51 million. Not sure whether that's right or not. They said that it was the most raised by a single political fundraiser in history. I'm sure they did say that. Well, it just seems a bit obscene to me, to be honest, Michael.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, it's nice to go from that story into this one, which is a very kind of worthy story, this next one, Sean. Scientists have hailed an important advance in the decades-old quest for a drug to slow the impact of Parkinson's disease in research that highlights the potential versatility of new diabetes and weight loss drugs.
Parkinson's patients who took the diabetes drug lixisenatide saw no worsening of their motor symptoms after a 1-year trial, according to a paper published in the New England Journal of Medicine. Parkinson's is a brain disorder that affects an estimated 10 million people worldwide and leads to symptoms including body tremors, slow movement, and in severe cases, dementia. The results will renew attention on the possible effectiveness of the so-called GLP-1 drugs against neurodegenerative conditions. The drugs mimic the GLP-1 gut hormone to trigger the release of insulin. They include popular new diabetes and weight loss drugs. Lots of people are talking about those. Now, there are two big companies making this, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. Novo Nordisk is trialling GLP-1 treatments on conditions including cardiovascular diseases and Alzheimer's. But the lixisenatide trial is one of the first longer studies to suggest that a GLP drug may slow progression of Parkinson's symptoms in humans. Very promising.
Yeah. Finally, Sean, KISS, one of the most flamboyant US rock bands of any era, has sold the rights to its music as well as its name, its image, and its likeness to Pophouse, the Swedish entertainment company founded by one of the members of ABBA.
Yeah, this is a great story. Pophouse plans to use the deal to create a live music show featuring avatars of the members of KISS, similar to ABBA Voyage, the London show that features digital versions of the members of the Swedish band. This is according to a story in the FT. The agreement values the artist's share of the music rights and branding at about $300 million. Pophouse hopes to keep the brand in the public eye for many years after the actual members of KISS have stopped touring. The company said the deal would unlock new audiences and revenue streams. Music rights have become a popular asset class in the past few years. They yield an income stream based on streaming revenues and record sales, and investors can also push up values through licensing deals for movies, TV shows, that type of stuff. KISS has sold more than 100 million records worldwide over a 50-year career. They actually played their final gig at Madison Square Garden in New York last December, Michael.
Would you go to a concert if you were just seeing avatars of KISS?
Absolutely not. I've seen KISS in concert, actually.
That's cool.
It was at Madison Square Garden, and it was, I have totally forgotten the other band's name. They were fantastic, though. Steve Tyler's the lead singer. They are a spectacular band.
Aerosmith.
Oh, my God, there you go. Aerosmith and KISS. Yep. Many years ago at Madison Square Garden, they were both unreal. No way would I go and watch the Avatars, though.
No, that would have been a heck of a concert.
Yeah, and it's funny. It was a friend of mine got me into the gig, and we actually got at half time when the bands changed. We lined up and we got to meet KISS.
Oh my God! I've stumbled on a KISS groupie here. You were waiting outside their dressing room door.
I don't know whether to admit this, Michael.
Oh, please go on. Oh, I'm standing up. I'm ready. I'm excited. Go on.
The first time I ever kissed a girl, the orange roller skating rink, to Kisses I Was Made for Loving You, Baby. Oh, why did I say that out loud? Shelley, I have just dropped myself below Michael's level.
I'm just leaving this moment just silent, just to let that sink in. Up next is the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. You're speaking today with Dougal Maple Brown from Maple Brown Abbott.
I wonder whether Dougal likes KISS. I'm sure he would. I'm sure he likes banks. We know he likes banks. We talked to him all about the big four banks, which ones he likes most, which don't. Are they overbought? Good interview for any investors out there.
Yeah, it is up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. Trying to get this back on track in the final moments, Sean. You've also got Fear and Greed the week ahead coming up with our resident economist, Stephen Koukoulas.
Yes, it's not much going on locally in terms of economics. A lot to talk about from last week. We do have National Australia Bank sentiment and consumer sentiment out this week. We also have some central banks who are making interest rate decisions, overseas central banks. Stephen, of course, is as enthusiastic as ever about the economy, so always worth a listen.
Yeah, certainly is. Thanks very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Monday, the 8th of April, 2024. Make sure you're following the podcast. Join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.